That was Jai Uttal, performer, player of kirtan. Amazing life he's had. He started out in Brooklyn, went to the High School of Performing Arts, and then somewhere
Actually, no, no, no. New Yorkers should know it was actually um, the music and art.
was that. Did that evolve into the High School of Performing Arts, or two
No,
different
I
things?
think I think there were two different places.
You had to be very talented to go to one of those schools, though.
Yes, that's right.
And he was a little bit younger than us at the time that he uh, caught on to the Beatles and the spirituality of the time, and that you document in your book, that big wave of time anyway when it was coming into the West. And he's spent his life really pursuing that music and bringing that music to people. And you asked him an interesting question, and I'm wondering what you hear about this, and that's that people who take more traditional spirituality, mantras, kirtans, that sort of thing, and change it a little bit, but make it more popular and more palatable for Western audiences. He said he's never had much problem with it. Is there a
Yeah.
lot of controversy over that?
No, no, I haven't run into it, but that's we've had other kirtan people on the show, and I've asked them the same question. And when I was researching American Veda, I interviewed a bunch of them, so I have a little profile of Jai in the book, and Krishna Das and a few others. And I've asked them because I'm curious, but none of them ever said they have had any problems with that. Most of them say the Indian people and the Hindu community is very appreciative. Some, of course, would prefer the traditional forms of music that is usually done with kirtan, and don't relate to a drum set
Mm-hmm.
or a plugged-in bass or any of the other instrumentation that some of the Westerners have added. But some of them enjoy it, especially
Right.
the younger ones who have grown up listening to both their own traditional music and Western rock and jazz and so forth. So
Yeah.
the, you know
It's not unlike in Christianity, at least within Catholicism. When I was a kid, if you went to a mass or whatever, it was very boring church music and maybe Gregorian chants, which some people like. And then over time, they wanted to make the message more relevant to people, and they thought, let's try pop music or rock music. And there were
yeah.
people that didn't like it, but for the most part, people said, great. If it gets the message across, if it inspires people, why not?
Yep.
And
I remember back in the 60s, um, there were some jazz musicians doing jazz versions of some of the Catholic uh, jazz, Catholic classical and choral music. And that was, considered really out there then. I mean, Duke Ellington and people like that did
mhm.
sacred music compositions. But why, music evolves, so why not?
Right, and bring it to the people. One thing that interesting he talked about. He listens to a lot of Bob Dylan, and
Yeah,
I was curious if he listened. I'll ask him next time, more for the lyrics or whatever. But what Bob Dylan's into right now, I mean, I heard him perform at the special tribute to Tony Bennett for his 90th birthday a couple of months ago, and he's a total pop singer now. The guy that he said is the mountain to climb is Frank Sinatra. So who
yeah,
knows? I mean, Dylan, you never know where he's going to go with this
yeah.
stuff. And
Hey,
there he
maybe
went.
maybe Dylan will be singing kirtan soon.
Well, that wouldn't surprise me. I could hear that. And he also said he was influenced by Bob Marley, and I
Yeah.
think my people have always considered Bob Marley very spiritual
Oh
in his
yeah, yeah.
message
Oh
and the
yeah.
Brazilian influence, and that's why he considers himself what's in his bio, in Jai's bio, is that he's a musician of world music, performer
Yeah.
of world music.
Well, he certainly has,
Yep.
he's drawing from a tremendous variety of influences. So why not? And one of the things that's interesting, and we've talked about this before, but the evolution of the yogic spirituality scene, back when the time Jai was first being exposed to kirtan, he didn't say how he was exposed to it, but it quite possibly was the Hare Krishna guys
Right.
in the streets of New York, which is the first time I and many other people
Right.
ever heard, that form of chanting, the sacred mantra chanting, and it was very weird and bizarre back then. And now kirtan is a very big thing, and thousands of people go to
Right.
kirtan concerts and yoga festivals that feature kirtan, and it's a kind of form of modern devotional practice that is extremely appealing.
Hmm. No,
Uh,
I believe one of the people responsible for that is George Harrison. George
yeah,
Harrison was quite
yeah,
involved with the Hare Krishna folks, and I guess for me it was my first exposure, and I had a hard time even back then relating to them because of the way they dressed and they were in
yeah,
the airports and all. But I always loved their devotional singing, their chanting,
yep,
and we've had a couple of Hare Krishnas on our show, and
yep.
I've been to their temple in San Diego a number of times. And if you hear their philosophy and you hear them talk, it's quite compelling. And when you hear the chanting and you let yourself go and you get into it, I think it's very powerful. It's very
Oh yeah, oh
uplifting,
yeah.
but I think it's got coming. These kirtans are being found through more and more people, and each one has their own flavor, their own angle on it, but
And
very enjoyable.
Jai's new album has a lot of Western stylings and Western instrumentation. Um, there's keyboards and electric guitars and different forms of percussion. There's horns, there's trombones and saxophones.
Hmm.
So that's not the kind of thing that people traditionally did in India, obviously. On the other hand, if you go to India, as I have, you might be carried away with the ecstatic chanting of just voices,
Hmm.
or maybe a tabla, or maybe a harmonium and a tabla. On the other hand, you may go to another place and it's some young people and they're plugged in, and they're the Indian guys, plugged in with guitars and electric bass or something, doing the same kirtan.
Right.
The consistency is in the mantras.
Right. Right. I wonder. I mean, a lot of Bollywood music, which I love, but I
Yeah.
totally do not understand. I'm sure some of that has its roots in
Oh,
spiritual chanting
prob,
and kirtan and
prob,
whatnot, and then throw in a
sure.
little hip hop, and yeah, it's a mishmash. But whatever it is, generally it works, and I actually think with Bollywood, a lot of the dance that they do, you can see elements of classical
Oh,
Indian dance
absolutely,
in what they're doing,
absolutely.
yet it's way, way,
Well,
far from that, if it wasn't.
it makes you think that if religious people were as generous and as open-minded about the different forms that religion takes as musicians are with the different forms that sacred music takes, the world would be a better place.
Right, absolutely. But when people get too rigid in their beliefs,
Yeah.
there's always trouble waiting for them right around
Yeah.
the corner. That's at least.
I may have told this story before, but along those lines, I'll never forget one night. It was a hot summer night in Santa Monica, and the Hare Krishna people were singing and dancing and doing their ecstatic music, and a bunch of Hasidic Jews joined
Right.
them, and I was amazing, and I remember thinking, see, if they were to sit down and talk about their belief systems, they'd be at each other's throats. But the music, they all recognize that this is just God.
You mean these Hasidic guys actually started singing along with
Yeah,
the Hare Krishna
yeah,
guys?
and then
Wow.
And then they did some Hebrew stuff, and the
Yeah.
Christians joined them in that. And it was just like
Well, if you ever
beautiful
see
thing.
these Hasidic guys, if you've ever been to a wedding or anything where they really let loose, it's not that different. They're
No,
singing, they're swirling,
that's
they're moving. It's almost
exactly
like watching a whirling dervish. I mean, those elements are all there that you see with the
that's right.
Sufi.
That's right. That's right. And you know, so that's what they recognized. Those, at least those people. I'm sure there'd be others who wouldn't, you know, go near it.
Hmm.
But
Wow.
anyway, there it is.
Very enjoyable. If we were on video, Phil and I would be doing, we would become whirling dervishes for you, but can't do it.
We should,
So, Spirit
okay.
Matters Talk, found at spiritmatterstalk.com. Tell your friends about it. We have some great shows coming up, and you know, it's a lot of fun, but we want to keep it going, and that will depend upon our listenership. So feel free to contact us. Go to spiritmatterstalk.com, get our information, and a little plug for Phil's book. Phil is working on a biography of uh, Paramahansa Yogananda, and I think we're now into 2017, and by 2018 it will be available. Is that right?
Yeah, I better get back to work.
Yeah,
Thanks.
get back on it. All right. Till next time.
Bye.
Bye.